India is possibly the most invaded country in history. Alexander the Great was the first, followed by the Mongols and other empires, and before its independence in 1947, the British Empire. However, history has changed, and today, India would be one of the most difficult countries to invade. There are nations that have proven to be fortresses, with rugged terrain, extreme climates, and a population willing to defend their land to the last breath. In this video, you will learn about the most difficult countries to invade on the planet. In fact, some of them have never been invaded. Mountainous territories, isolated, or due to their geographical location or population, would make it very difficult for another country to invade them. Number 13. Tonga. The Kingdom of Tonga is difficult to invade due to its territorial remoteness and insular condition. In 1990, Tonga became a British protectorate, but remained under the complete control of the Tongan royal family. They only had the presence of a consul. In fact, it was never colonized. In 1970, the country gained its independence and joined the British Commonwealth, although they do not recognize Charles III of the United Kingdom as their head of state. Therefore, it can be said that this is one of the few territories that has not suffered an invasion as such. It is one of the smallest countries in the world, with a territory of just 288 square miles. Its population is just about 100,000 people. The difficulty in invading it is because it is an archipelago located in Oceania, extremely far from the great powers, as reaching it would first require traveling thousands of kilometers by sea. Tonga's armed forces have about 500 active military personnel. It is unknown if they have reserve personnel and the exact amount of their limited military budget. Likewise, it is known that they do not have nuclear weapons. Only a few military vehicles are known to be possessed. Number 12. Bhutan. The Kingdom of Bhutan does not stand out on the military level, but thanks to its geography, it is one of the few countries that can say it has not experienced an invasion as such. In the 18th century, part of present-day Bhutan was controlled by the British. However, they managed to negotiate power through a peace agreement dating back to 1774, in which Bhutan agreed to pay 5 horses and give permission to harvest timber in Bhutan to the British East India Company in exchange for withdrawing British troops. Despite this agreement, the two countries were in constant border conflict until 1947, when India became independent and British forces withdrew from the area. Bhutan is a small country with an area of just 15,823 square miles approximately. It is surrounded by the majestic peaks of the Himalayas and is about 984 feet above sea level. Its population is estimated at around 777,000 people. It is difficult for an army to cross the Himalayas, and if they manage to do so, altitude sickness would weaken them. The Royal Bhutan Army has only a few thousand military personnel. Although the exact number is not known, it could be between 5,000 and 8,000 personnel. Likewise, their military budget and the number of reserve personnel are unknown, if they have any. Regarding their weaponry, one of the few known facts is that they have 2 aircraft. Number 11. Iran. The Islamic Republic of Iran is difficult to invade due to its territorial extension and military preparedness. Since time immemorial, and being part of the Middle East, Iran has been the focus of numerous wars. Although it has been significantly involved, it has somehow managed to keep invaders at bay. A clear example of this was the war between Iran and Iraq, which took place between 1980 and 1988. In this conflict, Iraq attempted to invade Iran to annex the Shatt al-Arab region. Neither side achieved the desired results, but Iran successfully repelled the invasion and preserved its territorial possessions. With over 620,000 square miles, Iran ranks among the top 20 largest countries in the world in terms of land area. Iran is surrounded by towering mountain peaks, where it has built numerous hidden bunkers. Additionally, it has an extensive network of underground missile bases that stretch across the country. The majority of Iran's population, estimated at around 87 million people, is Islamic. Due to their devotion to religion and the radicalism promoted and spread by their government, it is highly likely that in the event of an invasion, Iran's sizable population would be extremely aggressive towards the invading army. Having hostile relations with several countries, including the United States and Israel, Iran has found it necessary to develop its military capabilities. Its armed forces have an estimated budget of around $25 billion, and its active military personnel number over 600,000, with more than 300,000 in reserve. Although not proven, Western powers such as the United States and the United Kingdom suspect that Iran is developing secret nuclear programs. If this is true, the number of weapons they possess or are developing is unknown. In its arsenal, Iran has at least 1,658 tanks and 137 fighter aircraft. Number 10. Australia. The Commonwealth of Australia is part of the British Commonwealth and is unlikely to be invaded in the future due to its geographic isolation, land area, and geographic location. Despite its relatively short military history, Australia has contributed to several major wars, including the two world wars of the last century and several subsequent conflicts. One such conflict was the Vietnam War, fought between 1955 and 1975, in which Australia supported the United States against the Vietnamese guerrillas. Australia participated from 1962 to 1973 to prevent the spread of communism in Southeast Asia, close to its territory. Australia's territory covers more than 2.97 million square miles, making the sixth largest national territory in the world. This vast expanse is extremely difficult for any foreign army to control entirely. Its population of about 26 million people is relatively small for such a large territory. In terms of geography, Australia is one of the most challenging environments to endure in a potential war. Although its surface is very flat, its soil is dry and infertile. In fact, most of its land is desert or semi-arid. Being one of the largest islands in the world, Australia is surrounded by the Indian and Pacific Oceans. Thus, any military operation attempting to breach Australian sovereignty would have to cross thousands of kilometers of ocean, then face the fatigue and dehydration caused by its climate and geography. Australia's armed forces consist of around 60,000 active military personnel and nearly 30,000 reservists. As part of the British Commonwealth, its supreme commander is King Charles III of the United Kingdom. Australia's military spending is estimated to be around $25 billion. Following World War II, Australia began developing nuclear weapons with the United Kingdom, but these plans were abandoned during the 1960s and ended definitively in 1970 with the signing of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. As a result, Australia currently does not possess nuclear weapons. Australia's military assets include around 43 vessels, nearly 500 armored vehicles, 130 helicopters, and almost 400 aircraft. Number 9. Switzerland. The Swiss Federation is unlikely to be invaded due to its history of peace, international neutrality, and geography. Switzerland is practically the only country that gets along with all major powers and has no enemies. It maintains excellent relations with powers such as France, Germany, the United Kingdom, the United States, and others. In fact, it has not taken sides in any conflict since 1815. This neutrality in international conflicts has led it to be the headquarters of numerous international organizations and the site for the storage of many international financial assets. Its alpine geographic location is another deterrent factor. Most of its territory is alpine, making it an extremely high and mountainous land, protected by dense, cold mountains, which are difficult for any army to traverse. Additionally, Swiss citizens have the right to bear arms, which would be another factor to consider, along with the fact that there are numerous nuclear shelters throughout the country. Switzerland's current land area exceeds 15,800 square miles, and its population is approaching 9 million. Switzerland's military budget exceeds $5 billion annually, and its active personnel is estimated to be around 150,000. The number of its reserve personnel is unknown. As far as it's known, it does not possess nuclear weapons, although between 1946 and 1969, it developed a secret nuclear program which was abandoned due to economic difficulties and signing the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty in 1969. It has nearly 3,000 vehicles, including armored and combat vehicles, more than 40 combat aircraft, and 45 helicopters. Number 8. India. The Republic of India is difficult to control due to its dense population and its territory. India gained independence from the United Kingdom in 1947, and before the British colony, its current territory was part of numerous kingdoms. empires, and dynasties. It currently has over 1.4 billion inhabitants in an area of more than 1.16 million square miles. It is difficult for an invading army to fully control the seventh largest national territory in the world. Likewise, it will not be easy to subdue so many millions of civilians who would make any hypothetical military operation difficult. As for its armed forces, India has nearly 2.6 million active and reserve military personnel, boasting one of the largest armies in the world. Its military expenditure is estimated to be around $74 billion. According to recent reports, India has 160 nuclear weapons deployed on its territory, making it the seventh largest country in terms of such weaponry. Therefore, India's situation as a country is far from what it was in the 16th century when the British Empire arrived in the area. India also has 2 aircraft carriers, 11 destroyers, 16 submarines, 2 nuclear submarines, and fewer than 2,000 aircraft. Number 7. North Korea. The Democratic People's Republic of Korea is difficult to invade due to its military arsenal and its particular form of government. After being invaded by Japan during World War II, the Soviet Union recognized the existence of this country in the northern sector of the Korean peninsula, while the United States did the same for South Korea. Since then, both Koreas have been at odds and have completely different political and economic systems. The North is governed by socialist principles, while the South is more liberal. The Korean War even broke out between 1950 and 1953, aiming to unify the peninsula around one of the two states. Since neither country achieved the desired result, both have armed themselves since then and maintained hostilities. North Korea has an area of about 46,332 square miles, and its estimated population is almost 26 million people. Its population could be an important factor in defense against a potential attack. However, the limited data available on the country suggests that a significant portion of the population would not be in the physical or nutritional condition to withstand a possible invasion. Its strength lies in its armed forces and nuclear weapons. The Korean People's Army is its armed forces, and it is estimated to have 1.2 million active-duty military personnel and another 600,000 in reserve. If these numbers are accurate, it could be the second largest military organization in the world. North Korea has several adversaries globally, primarily the United States and South Korea. For decades, a confrontation between these sides has been anticipated. However, North Korean weaponry intimidates many Western powers and their southern neighbors. It is also the 9th largest owner of nuclear weapons worldwide. It is estimated that there are 20, which are not deployed on launchers, but stored. Nonetheless, it is common to hear in the news that nuclear tests are being conducted on North Korean soil. Regardless of its weaponry, according to the latest reports, it is estimated to have about 4,200 tanks, 458 combat aircraft, and 967 armored vehicles. Number 6. United Kingdom. The United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, due to its insular and strategic geographic location, has had to develop militarily to resist past European military threats. During World War II, Germany intended to annex the United Kingdom. However, its geographical situation prevented this plan from materializing. The dangerous waters and steep white cliffs of Dover were a natural barrier against the German army. Thus, the only way for an army to invade Britain is by crossing the English Channel between France and the United Kingdom, where those cliffs are located. And it is extremely difficult. Its area is almost 93,736 square miles. It is not very large, but its population of nearly 70 million people is. This number would represent significant resistance against any invasion that breached British soil after bypassing the difficulties of the sea. If its geographical situation is not enough, the British Army will do the rest. The British pride themselves on having an outstanding army in terms of technology and skill. Its naval force stands out due to its insular condition. British military spending is around $68 billion. Its active military personnel number about 37,000, and it has another 11,000 in reserve. It is the 5th country in the world with the most nuclear weapons, totaling about 225. It has more than 4,000 armored vehicles, almost 500 artillery vehicles, nearly 200 aircraft, 10 submarines, 6 destroyers, and 2 aircraft carriers. Number 5. Canada. Canada could hardly be invaded at any time due to its geographical location and large size. This country has had a modest participation in several international wars, including the 2 world wars of the last century and others in which the leader of the Commonwealth to which it belongs, namely the United Kingdom, has been involved. An example of the latter is the Second Boer War, fought between 1899 and 1902. It was a conflict between the United Kingdom and the founders of the independent republics of the Orange Free State and the South African Republic in South Africa, which, at the time, was a British possession. The British asked Canada for help in that conflict, and Canadian political parties were divided on the support they provided, especially the Liberal Party. Prime Minister Wilfrid Laurier initially sent 1,000 soldiers. Later, other divisions were sent. This would become Canada's first participation as a nation in a war. Its land area is nearly 3.85 million square miles, making it the second largest country in the world. From this perspective, a foreign army would face a significant challenge. It is difficult to control such a vast territory. This country is surrounded to the north and on both sides by glacial waters and the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, with below freezing temperatures. These freezing temperatures and the inevitable snow in the interior of Canada are enough to deter the most powerful army in the world. Its population of nearly 38 million patriotic and proud nationals would also present a challenge, but the primary obstacle will continue to be its geography and climate. As part of the British Commonwealth, its head of state is King Charles III of the United Kingdom. The Canadian Armed Forces obey the British monarch and consist of about 70,000 active military personnel and another 25,000 reservists. Canada is not known to possess nuclear weapons. The military budget exceeds $6 billion annually. Among the known figures, Canada operates over 10,000 utility vehicles, nearly 3,000 combat vehicles, 150 artillery pieces, and 430 aircraft. Number 4. China. The People's Republic of China is difficult to invade due to its large population, vast territory, and military power. Following the victory of the revolution in 1949, one of China's outstanding tasks is to annex the island of Taiwan. This small island territory is what remains of the political system that Maoist revolution displaced from mainland China. With the ongoing events between Russia and Ukraine, there are alerts that China could make a move to annex the island, following in the footsteps of its northern neighbor. Its population is the second largest on the planet, after India, with an area of over 3.67 million square miles. Thus, a hypothetical invasion of China would face a vast territory difficult for any army to control, and an extremely large population that would exhaust any invading effort when resisting. China's military spending is the second largest in the world, at about $273 billion annually. Its armed forces have 2.5 million active and reserve military personnel. It is also the third country with the most nuclear weapons, with around 350. According to the United States Department of Defense, China has developed kinetic energy weapons, high-power microwave weapons, high-power lasers, and electromagnetic pulse weapons with increased military funding. Among the latest known data, it is estimated that China may possess over 6,000 tanks, more than 4,000 armored vehicles, and about 7,000 infantry vehicles, nearly 1,000 helicopters, 3 aircraft carriers, and more than 700 aircraft. Number 3. Japan. The state of Japan is an extremely technologically advanced country that has demonstrated great potential in the past to withstand military adversity and carry out military operations far from its borders. During World War II, Japan was the last state to surrender to the United States, the United Kingdom, and the Soviet Union, even after Germany and Italy. Its goal was to form an extensive empire in Southeast Asia and the Pacific Ocean. In fact, the United States had to drop 2 atomic bombs on Japan to prevent the war from being prolonged. That's how dangerous and powerful the Japanese can be on the battlefield. On the other hand, Japan managed to resist European colonization. In the early 20th century, it defeated the then Chinese dynasty during the First Sino-Japanese War, and when Russia tried to invade, the Japanese forces were ready and won the Russo-Japanese War of 1905. If an invader were to eventually try to invade Japan, they would have to cross an ocean to reach it, which makes the process difficult. Its island situation is usually a great advantage, and if they are not destroyed by the Japanese, their current ally, the United States, would help maintain their territorial integrity. Japan's land area reaches 145,683 square miles and is home to about 125 million people. Being a densely populated country, the army would face resistance from many people throughout the territory. Although the Japanese Constitution states in Article 9 that it renounces war as a means of resolving conflicts, its self-defense force is highly advanced technologically and well-trained. The active personnel of this force almost reaches 250,000, and its reserve consists of another 56,000 more. Despite having the capacity to develop nuclear weapons, there is no evidence that they are currently doing so. Although it is speculated that there could be American nuclear weapons at their military bases in Japan, it is not confirmed. Among the data available to the public, it has around 3,600 armored vehicles, more than 300 artillery vehicles, nearly 110 maritime patrol ships, over 140 helicopters, and almost 150 ships, including more than 20 submarines. Number 2. Russia. The Russian Federation is one of the most difficult countries to invade, as its complex geography, vast territory, and military preparation make it an almost impenetrable target. The greatest enemy of any foreign army attempting to invade Russia is its geography and climate. Its nearly 6.56 million square miles in the northern world would not only make it difficult to control such an area, but its harsh, cold climate has been described as general winter by defeated armies in the past on Russian soil. This happened to Napoleon Bonaparte, who experienced a significant defeat of the French Empire when he tried to take control of Russia and began to see the decline of his continental power as a result of the climate. Adolf Hitler also experienced this when he tried to betray his then ally, Joseph Stalin. He not only suffered defeat, but managed to get the Soviet Union to join the United States and Great Britain against German expansionism in World War II. In military terms, it is one of the countries that spend the most on military and defense matters, although far behind China and the United States. It has over 3 million active and reserve military personnel, making up its armed forces. It is worth noting that it is the country with the most nuclear weapons in the world. They have almost 6,000, of which about 1,500 are strategically deployed. It is estimated that it has nearly 12,500 tanks, more than 30,000 armored vehicles, over 4,000 aircraft, 1 aircraft carrier, 70 submarines, and 15 destroyers. Also, its population is estimated at about 145 million people. Like the military, faced with an invading army, the population only needs to let nature take its course. The freezing Siberian temperatures and treacherous mountains will wear down any army, putting them at a disadvantage against the Russians. Number 1. The United States. The United States of America leads this ranking as the world's most economic and military power, as well as being one of the largest countries in the world. On December 7, 1941, the attack on Pearl Harbor took place, a surprise military offensive by the Japanese Navy against the U.S. naval base at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. Although it was not an invasion, it was an attack that shocked the American people and led to the country's entry into World War II. Since then, and as one of the victors of the war, it has been a world power of the first order and has subsequently waged countless wars around the world. Currently, it is one of the world's leading military power, being the country with the largest military investment on the planet in this field. Its active military personnel exceed 1.3 million people, and its reserve consists of almost 800,000 more soldiers. It would be an extremely tough and resilient armed force against a potential invader. It has nearly 5,500 nuclear weapons in its possession, ranking second in terms of holding these types of weapons. It is estimated to have nearly 15,000 aircraft, more than 6,500 tanks, 739 naval assets, and 11 aircraft carriers. Its land area exceeds 3.47 million square miles, being surpassed in size by Russia, Canada, and possibly China if we consider its territorial claim over Taiwan. The national population exceeds 340 million inhabitants, of which their patriotism and sense of belonging to the country that hosts them is noteworthy. It would be a society ready to face an enemy army in the worst circumstances. Its geography is also an important armor. Being a mega-diverse country, it has the vast Arizona desert, the imposing Rocky and Appalachian Mountains, a vast network of rivers, plateaus, and snowy landscapes in Alaska, and is surrounded by two oceans, the Pacific to the west and the Atlantic to the east. As a country's population, society, and power changes from one decade to another, and even more so over the centuries, the situation of all of these countries could change.